Head west from Brisbane on the Darren Lockyer Way, then through Toowoomba and a few hours west, and you'll come to Roma. On the eastern entry to Roma, you'll find the home ground of Cities Rugby League Club, one of the oldest and best known sporting clubs in country Queensland. The Cities Club has been an important part of Roma's sporting and social fabric for over 100 years. As the Cities Club goes forward into the future, it is worthwhile to spend some time to reflect on the journey that's brought it here today. An old quote says, "Those who drink the water should always remember those who dug the well." In many ways, the history of cities and of Roma football is a story of sporting clubs and country towns throughout Australia. The fortunes of sport often reflect the fortunes and history of the country. Sport has been impacted by national and local conditions, by drought and flooding rains, by world wars, by boom times, and by depression. Roma has a rich history stretching back over 150 years, and as the town has grown and changed, some things have remained the same. A mainstay in Roma life has been sport, and since 1912, the Cities Football Club has been a constant in the town's sporting environment. With over 20 first grade premierships in its trophy cabinet, along with numerous reserve grade and underage triumphs, Cities are the most successful club in the history of football in Roma. Many good and some great players have worn the club's colours. The most famous of all are Arthur Beetson, Darren Lockyer, and Wally Fullerton Smith, who all left Roma to go on to represent Queensland and Australia. Arthur and Darren have been recognised as two of the very best players of all time. It is with great pride that Cities have produced 2 of the 12 Queensland State of Origin captains. To find the beginning of the Cities journey, we need to go back to the very first team to bear the Cities name. Then known as the City Club, this team played rugby union in a 6-team competition, along with Cadets, Wallaroos, the Catholic Young Men's Society, King George and Wallabies. Ironically for a rugby league team famous for its blue colours, Cities began life as a rugby union club, outfitted in red. The Cities boys emerged victorious from this first season to take the first premiership for the club. Among the players in this first team were Parry, Chaffey, Richard Leach, Jack Deasley, John Tye, Reg Harvey, George Campbell, Frank Bartlam and the captain, Sid Reeves. This team backed up their effort in 1913, taking premiership number 2, and were lauded in verse by local policeman Clarence Stanley.
So now 1913 season's o'er, the City boys hold sway, and once again have won the cup by truly brilliant play. So let us give a ringing cheer, and this message transit down, that Cities are the finest lot of footballers in the town.
World War I disrupted football for the next few years. Games began again in 1918, and the code was then, and is still today, Rugby League. Newly formed Boomerangs took the first premiership played under Rugby League rules. In 1919 and 1920, the Cities combination conquered all to again take back-to-back premierships from rivals Railways and Boomerangs. This added premierships number 3 and 4. Railways took out premierships in 1921 and 22, and Cities did not return to the winner's circle until 1925 for their 5th premiership. Under skipper Tiger Lyons, the 1925 Cities team played 8 matches, winning 7 and scoring a total of 83 points, while conceding only 35. The big rivals of this era were a team called Suburbs. In 1927 saw the emergence of the club which was destined to become City's arch rival for the next 80-odd years, when Wattles were formed to take that year's premiership. Also of interest, the 1920 Cities teams were still yet to find their true colours. In this era, they played in black and white. In 1930, Cities entered what can only be described as the wilderness years, and had no team from 1930 to 1936. They returned in 1937, and the boys in blue have been a permanent part of Roma football ever since. Beaten by Wallabies in the latter part of the 1930s, Cities took out the 1940 premiership for title number 6, before World War II intervened. A number of Cities players traded their blue uniform for khaki, with 10 players enlisting in 1940. They were joined by many more as the war progressed. Fred Nuss, seen smiling in the back row of the 1940 team photo, was killed in action in 1944. Cities player Reg Foot also paid the ultimate sacrifice. Rugby league made a comeback to the rec in 1945, and Cities went through the season undefeated to clinch the Premiership. The other competing clubs were Railways and Wattles. Cities won the Premiership Trophy, the Patrons Cup, the EC Conlon Trophy, and the Mrs D. Bryar Trophy. Cities added to their 1945 title with wins in 46, 47 and 1948 to be undoubtedly the most successful A-grade team in the club's history. The success of the 40s took the Premiership tally to 10. The Cities team of the last half of the 1940s contained players who are rightly remembered as legends of the club. Jack Nolan, Bill Conlon, Roy Cornish, the Grubb brothers, Pete, Tony Elson and Roy, the goal-kicking fullback Carney Brennan, big, strong, skillful Bill Galton, and clever halfbacks Jock Kavanagh and Roddy Hoffman, and club president Bob Rogenkamp, who presided over Cities' golden era. The 1948 Premiership win for Cities was decided in the final match of the season against Wattles.
The ball was gathered by Hoffman, who gave to Brennan to punt high and long. Cherry, the Wattles fullback, fielded the ball. Cities forwards forced him to kick, and Galton, coming downfield, fielded the ball. He set sail for the corner with little opposition, and Chant was with him. At the 25, Galton gave to Chant, who dived across for a great try. Brennan failed to add the extras, Cities 12, Wattles 7. The final whistle blew with the scores unchanged.
After the success of the 1940s, Cities entered the Premiership Doldrums in the 1950s, as first Wallabies, followed by Wattles, and then town-based teams from Wallumbilla and Mitchell came to the fore. A move by Max Cherry to coach the club in 1965 brought success, with the club's first premiership in 16 years, for title number 11. Led by Max and the brilliant Scott Arthur, who was supported by tough front rowers Bill McMullen and Lindsay Borgia, and the try-scoring brilliance of Len Summers and Ken Martin, Cities went through the fixture season as undefeated minor premiers to take Wallumbilla in the grand final, 12 points to 5. The latter half of the 1960s belonged to Mitchell and Wallumbilla. Despite appearing in several grand finals, the club needed to wait until the 1970s before again tasting premiership success. But Cities hit back with a vengeance in 1971 when the club swept all before them in the 3 grades to take out a grand slam of premierships. Cities A-grade premiership number 12 came in pouring rain and muddied Bassett Park when a single Ken Martin try gave the boys in blue a famous 3-0 victory.
There was not much between the two sides until the 25th minute. It was then that City's crackback line got going, and with several players managing to hold the ball long enough to get it out to Martin on the wing, we saw him handle the slippery conditions in great style to beat the opposition in a good run to dive over and score in the northeast corner.
The club backed up 2 years later, and with Mick Flesser scoring 7 tries in 2 finals matches, the Gladiators took out their second Grand Slam, including Premiership number 13. Cities had to wait until 1980 for the next turn in the winner's circle, as first Wallumbilla, then Mitchell and Taroom proved too tough during the 1970s. The Gladiators added titles in 82 and 83 for a productive start to the decade, adding up the titles 14, 15 and 16. A 14 points to 11 grand final win over Mitchell gave Cities the 1980 Premiership.
The significant part the boot of Wayne Watt played in the match was probably the real difference between the two sides. Although he only kicked 3 from 5, his 2 field goals and some memorable first half line kicks under pressure were great value to Cities.
In 1982, Cities triumphed over Wattles 19-13 in the season decider.
The best players afield were Cities forwards Harvey and Tilbury, while Wayne Watt had a fine game in the centres and 5'8" Stephen Beck got through a lot of work.
They backed up again in 1983, coming from 4th spot to again be premiers, with an incredible 61 points to 30 victory over minor premiers Wallumbilla. The last half of the 80s and the early 90s were dominated by town arch rivals Wattles, but Cities were still able to chip in with wins 1990, 92 and 95. They had premierships 17, 18 and 19. The 1990 grand final belonged to Cities, 23-12.
Warren Baker can field on his own quarter way, runs across the field straight at Mark Packer. Oh, bumping stuff, Packer hurt there. We'll get up to Blad. A dummy half, it comes on to Collins. Collins Dummies and goes his own Tony Collins. Can he split through? Across the field he goes, still going towards the corner. Oh, what a fine try by Tony Collins to seal the grand final in 1990. Tony Collins eluded the Wattles defence.
In a thrilling climax to the 1992 season at Bassett Park, a try 4 minutes from time by lanky replacement forward Graham Richters annexed the crown for Cities over arch-rivals Wattles. Cities proved their 1995 competition form to be true when they were able to blot out a determined Wattles challenge at Bassett Park last Sunday to win the 1995 4X Premiership.
New rivals from 1996, in the form of Chinchilla and St George, made wins a little harder to come by, but Cities were still able to fly the blue flag with Premiership success in 2000, 2003 and 2004. These were Championships 20, 21 and 22.
The Gladiators, on the back of a 3-try effort from interchange forward Mick Dodd, were able to hold off a gutsy Chinchilla who mounted a late charge.
Pass on to Bannerman. Bannerman gives it to Ferguson. He steps his way clean through. Looks for Pitt. Gives it to Dodd. Dodd to the try line. Score. Try the Cities. Mick Dodd puts it down. Doggy, doggy, doggy. Come on, let's go, Mark. Get territory.
Cities played one of their best games ever on Sunday to secure the 2003 Premiership. When the final whistles blew, it was the sound of sweet victory for Cities, having enjoyed an outstanding game to beat rivals St George 38 points to 32.
The 2004 Gladiators finished the season in emphatic style, winning the grand final 45 points to 14 over the Wallumbilla Surratt Red Bulls. Captain Casey Harvey led the way for the Gladiators with a hat-trick of tries. The Cities club has not returned to the Premiership position in A grade since 2004 and have needed to rely on its younger grades to bring silverware to the club, with both the 18s and 16s winning 3 titles since 2004. These wins by the younger grades stress the point that a focus on the first grade team should not detract from successes in reserve grade and underage competitions. The first underage successes that have come to light were in 1927 and 1929, when Cities were credited with junior premiership wins. Since 1964, Cities have won 24 titles in the under-18, under-19 age group, with 10 of these in succession from 1964 to 1973. The under-16 age group kicked off in 1986, and the Gladiators have won 11 titles, or more than a third of the competitions in the time since. The club took out its first reserve grade title in 1939 and has chipped away regularly at the second tier to have a total of 18 premierships. It is the nature of sport that the success of teams and clubs are judged by the number of trophies in the cabinet. With 23 first grade and a total of 77 premierships across all grades, there can be no doubt that Cities rate very highly and must be considered the most successful club in the history of Roma sport for its efforts on the field and its longevity and resilience of it. But raw stats do not tell the full story. The complete tale is one of striving, of mateship, of fun times, of good times, of hard times, of triumph and of heartbreak. Facts and figures do not record the near misses, the pain and injury, and they cannot go close to recording the feelings of being involved with a club with a history and a spirit which prevails and persists for year after year. For over 100 years, Cities have been a part of the sporting, social and cultural landscapes of Roma. Hundreds of young men have pulled on the Cities jumper and have contributed to the success and history of the club. Just as importantly, there has always been a devoted volunteer base. The mums, the dads, the brothers, the sisters, the mates, the coaches, the strappers, the canteen workers, the groundsmen. Everyone involved has enjoyed the camaraderie that is at the very heart of Cities, which, it must be said, is more than just a footy club. It has truly been a century of Gladiators.
Thank you.